Hey guys, C-Dub here, and by now you've probably already seen my Doom 2016 versus Doom Eternal vid. If you haven't, I will put a link in the description for it. But now we're going to do Modern Doom versus Retro Doom, and we're going to talk about the enemies as well. We're going to talk about how easier it is, in my opinion, to deal with them, and we're going to go through the weapons as well, and which ones I like better. So very similar to the previous video. Let's get into it. So we'll begin with the zombies, and the zombie man I guess would be for the Retro Doom. And the zombies in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are really easy. They don't really do anything or come at you. But the zombie men in Doom, they will actually shoot you. So based off that, I'm going to say they're harder to deal with. In Doom Eternal, they give you little rewards for beating them because you get ammo and stuff like that. You can get armor. But it's definitely way easier to deal with them in the modern Dooms than it is in the retro one. Because in the modern Dooms, they don't do anything. The retro ones, they actually at least will shoot you. So, still easy. They're both easy, but way easier in the modern version. Shotgun guy for Retro Doom, and I guess Possessed Soldier would be it for the more modern take. It's definitely way harder in the retro one than it is in the modern one, because them shotguns do damage, man. Retro shotguns, they fucked with you. In the modern ones, they're really not that hard to do with the Possessed Soldiers. Just shotgun them. They'll be done pretty quickly. I mean, yeah, you can shotgun them as well in the retro one, but still, it's way harder because they do way more damage. I think in Doom 2016, they even did more damage than they did in Doom Eternal, but they were a bitch in the regular one, especially if you had the difficulty up. So, yeah, shotgun guy in the retro version, way harder to deal with. Now I'm going to group this into one with the chain gun and the Hellraiser from Doom 2016. And also we didn't touch on it in the last Doom video, which I missed the Hellraiser, which they shoot these beams out. But if I gotta go with a harder one, it's easily the retro one from Doom 1 and Doom 2. The chain guns dudes were a bitch. They will damage the fuck out of you. Hellraiser's not really that big of a problem. You just double shotgun them. They just have a heavy defense, I think, but you can take them out pretty easily. They're not really the problem. It's just that there's a lot of other shit shooting at you. Chain gun people are a fucking problem. You gotta take them bitches out. But the Hellraiser, not that big of a deal. The imps for both modern and retro, I'm gonna say the modern one is definitely harder. They fly around the fucking arena. They're just hard to nail down. It's not a matter of they're hard to necessarily kill, they're just hard to shoot. So that's the problem. You have to shoot them. It's not like they're hard to deal with, but they're running around the fucking map. So they're fucking crazy. Like one shot you get them, but they just run around. In the retro one, they don't run around as much. So they're way easy to deal with. You can mow them down really easily. So yeah, they're not a problem in the retro one. Modern one, way harder. The pinkies. Now, the pinkies in the retro one, way easier. Way easier. You can mow them down, you can shoot them in the front, back, wherever. Modern one, not the case. You have to shoot them really from behind. You can shoot them from the front, but it takes a lot more ammo and it's a lot more of a hassle. The retro one, you can kill them in so many different ways. Shotgun, anything. In the modern one, you just have to find a way to get behind them, and they are a bitch. They are a bitch to deal with. And honestly, you can take out a group of pinkies and it'd be no problem in the retro one. The modern one, if there's a group of fucking pinkies and they gang up on you, that shit's gonna be difficult. You will get mauled down. So yeah, the modern one is not even close. Modern one is definitely harder. The Caco Demon, I always have a hard time pronouncing this. Anyway, that demon with the eye. I'm gonna say the retro one, again, harder to deal with for this. The modern one, they're easier, especially in Doom Eternal, because you can just use a sticker grenade and just throw it in their mouth, and they're really easy. So Doom Eternal, it's really fucking easy. Doom 2016, you just kind of shoot them, but they never really gave you a hassle in Doom 2016 as well. Now, in the retro versions, they're not the hardest enemy to deal with, but they're a lot harder. If there's a group of them, they're harder to deal with. So, just going off that, I'm going to say the retro one, it's harder to deal with. Hell Knights. Now, the Hell Knight in Doom 2016, I believe they just come at you. They don't have to shoot anything or anything. They just come at you and try to punch and, I guess, claw you down. As for the retro one, they shoot you really from afar. So, I'm going to say they're a lot easier to deal with than the retro one. because you can just fire back on them from afar and they're easier to dodge. In the modern ones, they just keep coming at you and they're harder to run away from. So I'm going to say harder to deal with in the modern ones, way easier in the retro one. Baron of Hell. Now the Baron of Hell in the retro version is very similar to the Hell Knight. They really just fire from afar at you. They don't really come at you like that. Now in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, they can come at you. More so in Doom Eternal than in Doom 2016. They kind of stay away as well, but they will come at you as well. So going off that, because they can come at you and you can't really just fire from afar and dodge their attacks, and in the modern ones they come at you, I'm going to say definitely the modern one is a lot harder to deal with. Arcatron, whatever that spider mastermind little soldier is, in the retro one, kind of harder to deal with, especially because they just fire this continual wave or dot energy. I don't know what it's called, but they fire that continually at you. In Doom Eternal, because there was none in Doom 2016. So for Doom Eternal, they're really not that hard. You take out their cannon and they're easy to deal with. It's more so because there's enemies around them that make them hard. But if there's even just a group of them, they're not as hard to deal with. Just take out the cannon and they're way simpler, I would say. They're still a bitch. Very close, actually, because they're faster in the modern one. And in the retro one, they're a little slower, but if they hit you and they get you once, it's kind of hard to get away from them, and it does a lot of damage. So it's closer, but I'm going to say that the retro one is harder. Pain Elemental. Now, the Pain Elemental in Doom Eternal, because there was none in Doom 2016, they weren't really that difficult, honestly. Like, I never really worried about them, but oh my god, in the retro one, every time they were on the screen, you had to take them down because they continuously shoot Lost Souls. In Doom Eternal, it doesn't seem like they shoot as much. They just shoot maybe like 3 or 4, or if they do, they take longer. Now, in the retro one, they just keep shooting Lost Souls, and they just keep shooting them. And then when they explode, all of the Lost Souls come out, and maybe because Lost Souls, I think, were harder to deal with, we're just going to group Lost Souls as well. In here, I think the Lost Souls in the retro one were so much more difficult than in the modern ones. So that might also be why it plays a factor into this. But the Pain Elementals were a bitch in the retro one. Definitely not as hard in the modern one. So yeah, fuck them in the retro one. Way harder. The Revenants. Man. Fuck them in the retro ones. The modern ones, they're like average. They're like an average enemy, honestly. They're not super hard or not hard. They're normal type of enemy. In the retro one, they are hard because for some reason, it just seems like those missiles were way more of a bitch in the retro one than they are in the modern one. Maybe because they don't shoot it as much in the modern one. I feel like they come at you more. And them coming at you is what you want than them shooting from afar. At least in the modern one. In the retro one, you don't want them shooting from afar, because if they shoot from afar, those things follow you. They constantly follow you. There is no just, alright, I dodged it to the side. No, those fucking things just keep coming. It's just something about it in the retro one that made it just so much harder to deal with. You rather get up close with them. Now, you kind of rather get up close with them in the modern one as well, but it really actually just doesn't matter. You shoot them from afar or close. Now, retro one, you want to get up close because, good God, I think they just did more damage in that one. Maybe that's what it was, but yeah, they're way harder in the retro one. The Mancubus. Now, the Mancubus for the retro one, not as hard to deal with, because the difference between them and the Revenants, they both shoot rocket launchers at you, but they don't just follow you. You can just dodge them to the side in the retro ones and it's not as bad. In the modern ones, they have that, and if you get up close, they have this little fire thing. And I'm just going to say that in the modern one, I think it's harder, because I think they just get your attention more so than in the retro one. And they're not on my top priority to deal with, but in the modern one, they needed to go ASAP, more so than the Revenants, than almost the Barons of Hell, depending on which game. For Doom 2016, the Baron would have to go first, but in Doom Eternal, you kind of decide which one. But the Mancubus, to me, in the modern one is harder than the one in the retro one. And they also have the Cyber one. I don't know if we should group that in there with it, but yeah, definitely harder. The Archvile. Oh, they suck in both, but let's get into it. The modern one, they only had it in Doom Eternal. Thank God they didn't have it in Doom 2016, because if they were going to do what they did in Doom Eternal, fuck that. In the modern one, they can just spawn any enemy. I'm not even sure if they can revive them. I never looked, because I was so busy just trying to deal with them, and they just kept making new enemies. So I don't know if they're respawning them or what, but they just keep coming. You need to take that out ASAP. In the retro one, yes, they're still a bitch. You need to take them out as well because they do this fire thing and it does so much damage and they respawn enemies. So it's not like you can just run around and take out the other enemies and then deal with that one-on-one. No, you still have to deal with that first because if you don't, it's just going to revive the ones you took out. They're a bitch in both of them. But good God, the modern one, they're just spawning and they can spawn any of them. That's the difference. Like they can just spawn any enemy, man. I think outside of the Marauders, they just could bring back or respawn any enemy. It's just crazy. Modern one is hard as fuck. They're both a bitch in either one, but modern one takes the cake. Now that does it for the monsters because there is a lot of bosses that you can count, but I'm just trying to get through the enemies. I don't really want to go through the bosses. I think the Cyber Demon is actually a boss in the retro ones, but in the modern ones, to me, they're just an enemy, at least for Doom Eternals. Doom 2016 was a boss. And then the Spider Mastermind, I feel like that's more of a... Actually, I think that's a boss for both of them. Anyway, I just wanted to do the enemies. We're not really talking about the bosses in this one. So let's get into the weapons. Now, the retro and modern Doom both have a pistol. At least Doom 2016 does. Doom Eternal does not have the pistol. So we'll just compare those. And I'm going to say the one in the modern Doom, which would be Doom 2016, is better because there's no ammo for it. You can actually charge it. So you actually use the pistol more because once you get a shotgun in the retro Dooms, you're not going to use the pistol at all. You never use the pistol. That's it. You use it probably on the first level and you don't ever really use it again. So by that, I'm going to give it to modern Doom. I guess we'll talk about the chainsaw next, and they're both in the modern and the retro one. It's going to be hard to grade this one because in Doom Eternal, the chainsaw is used a lot more. In Doom 2016, it's used sparingly because there's not a lot of fuel for it. So it's hard to judge which is better because Doom Eternal uses it a lot more and you can use it on at least the zombies. For Doom 2016, you can't do that. Now, in the regular Doom, you can use it anytime on anyone. So I'm going to give it to modern Doom by just a hair. Just because of the animations. You gotta just give it off animations that it look way better. And like I said, at least in Doom Eternal, you can use it a lot more. So by that, I'm gonna say it's better in the modern Dooms. The shotgun. Now this is when the mods become a thing for the modern Dooms. And that's probably why I'm gonna give it the point here. Or I say that it's better. Because without the mods, it'd be very close. But with the mods, at least especially for Doom Eternal, they have this sticky one where you can actually use it to destroy enemies, and they have grenades. They also have this cannon, or I shouldn't say cannon, but a little machine gun on it. So there's a lot more you can do with the shotgun. For Doom, you use it a lot, especially in Doom 1. But when Doom 2 comes in, you don't really use the shotgun, at least the regular one, as much. So going off that, I'm going to say the modern Doom takes it. The super shotgun. Now, the super shotgun was introduced in Doom 2, and they have it in both the modern ones, in both Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. And in Doom Eternal, they introduced the meat hook, which lets you launch into enemies and grapple onto them, and you go towards them with it. So, they give you a little addition in Doom Eternal. Now, I'm going to give this to the retro one, because in the retro one, you use it all the time. I mean, all the time. Every time you get a chance, you're using that one. It's either that or the plasma gun. So it is used so much more. In Doom 2016, it's used a lot. But there's also other weapons you use just as much as it, at least for me. And in Doom Eternal, you use it a lot more than I would say in Doom 2016. But it's just something about that retro one that's just... It's just better. I'm sorry, it's just better. It's just the way it kills them in the way, I don't know. It's just something about it. So for me, I gotta give it to the retro one. It just has that classic feel, and it's just better. It's just better. The chain gun. Now this was close. The chain gun for the retro Dooms, you use it a lot. Especially because in the retro Dooms, there was a whole bunch of enemies. So they'll just pile of enemy on top of you, or enemies on top of you, I should say. And you gotta just mow them down. And chain gun is perfect for it. Now, in the modern ones, they give you some mods that make it better. I know in Doom 2016, you can start the thing moving and stuff. Now, in the retro Dooms, you don't even have to worry about that because it shoots automatically. There's a little wait time in the modern ones, at least in Doom 2016. And In Doom Eternal, they give you a shield. There's other mods for it, so it's very hard to judge this. But because of the mods, I gotta give it to the modern Dooms, just because those mods can become very, very useful. So for this, I gotta give it to the modern one. The rocket launcher. Now, there's mods as well for this. You can shoot 3 at a time, or you can detonate it at any time for an enemy. And you have, of course, the classic, or the retro, I should say, rocket launcher for Doom 1 and Doom 2. I'm gonna give it to the retro one. I have to give it to the retro one just because you use it so much more. And Doom Eternal's rocket launcher to me is just not as effective. I love Doom 2016's, but Doom Eternal's, it just seems off. Something about it, and that's actually what's gonna bring it down for me. Doom 1 and Doom 2, it's the same thing. Doom 2016, I love the rocket launcher, but even though you can shoot 3 at once, it doesn't feel like you're doing more damage than it does when you're playing in the retro one. It seems the same, and that's crazy, but it just seems like that, at least when I'm playing through it. So for which one is better, I gotta give it to the retro Doom. The plasma gun. Now, there's different mods and stuff here and there for the modern ones. There's different versions of them that I discussed in the last video, but the mods, there's just too much. I feel like there's just too much for the plasma gun. I don't need all that. Just give me the gun and shoot it, and that's what the retro one does. The retro plasma gun to me is so much better. So much. It may be even the best gun in the game. Outside of that, with that super shotgun, it's between those two. It's between that and the super shotgun. So for me, I'm giving it to the retro one. The retro one, you just use it so much. If you had unlimited ammo, would you even use a different gun? I can tell you how to use a different gun in the modern Doom. Even if with unlimited ammo, I would use a different gun. For the retro one, I don't know if I'd use a different gun. And that includes the BFG, I don't know. Like, that's how good the plasma gun is. So for me, I'm gonna say the retro one is a lot better. The BFG. Now, the BFG for the modern runs in Doom 2016, I love it. I fucking love it. It just gives you that little zap and they explode. Perfect. In Doom Eternal, though, it's alright. It's just alright. Now, for the retro ones, you love it too. You love it too, but oh, this is going to be close. It's going to be close because Doom Eternals really brings down the BFG. Doom 2016's, it's just so fucking good. Doom 1 and Doom 2, it's good. So just because of that, just because of Doom Eternal's BFG, I'm going to say the retro one is a little bit better. And I mean, just a little bit. So I would go with the retro version, in my opinion. And that should do it. Now I'm going to say which one I think is better. Now, Doom 1 and Doom 2 are both really, really, really good games. Really good. And it's what Doom 2016 is kind of based off on. Trying to give you that old school classic feel. Doom Eternal, though, went a little differently. It kind of made you pick which weapon you had to use to fight an enemy. And it, like I said, a lot of strategy involved, platforming, all that. Doom is also based on puzzles, and I love the puzzles, especially in the retro ones, way more than the modern ones. Modern ones, at least for Doom 2016, it wasn't that complicated, at least to me. The ones in the retro ones, there was some complicated puzzles sometimes. You kind of had to go around the map. Now, there was some way too complicated shit with the master levels. Now, the master levels, there is one master level in Doom Eternal. I don't know how they call it master levels when there's just one. But the ones in Doom 2 are fucking ridiculous. They make no sense. They are stupid. They're confusing. There's no way you would have figured some of this shit out without looking it up. It makes no sense. They are bad. They are really bad. But at least they're master levels. Doom Eternals, it's just one level. It's still just one level as of this date. And they're probably going to make you pay for the other ones. But anyway, which is better, the retro or the modern ones? I gotta say the retro ones are, just because of Doom Eternal. Doom 2016 may be one of the best Doom games I've ever played. Doom Eternal's probably my least favorite Doom game I've played, while Doom 1 and Doom 2 are great. Doom 2 only flaw is the master level. That's the only problem with Doom 2. It's just the master levels are fucking horrendous. But outside of that, it's still a great game. They're both great. And for the modern ones, you just have one great one and one okay one, in my opinion. I think Doom Eternal went a different route. So for me, I'm going to say the retro ones are better. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one. We might have one Doom video left. I may do it. I may wait till the next October to do it. I'm not sure. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed both of these Doom videos. C-Dub out. Peace.